When we study, when we learn Torah, it literally, and it's very frustrating for me that this term has become a cliche and it's used way out of context, because it is a term that it refers to something that is so important, it is so valuable, and people just throw it around. But the study of Torah creates a space that is safe. Inside study of Torah, the study of Torah is literally, when we're studying, we are creating a safe space, a space that is protected. It is a ir miklot. We are creating a space of refuge, that connection to that even just pragmatically, before we get to the spirituality of it, which we've already addressed, but just pragmatically, right? Our attention can only ever be focused on a maximum of one thing at a time. Right? When it comes to multitasking, there's an expression in Hebrew, and it's gold. And it says, Gam zeh v'gam zeh, zeh lo zeh v'lo zeh. If you're doing both this and that, it's neither this nor that. And it can feel very tempting to multitask, but if you time yourself, and the data are very clear on this, when we switch back and forth between, what we think of doing two things at the same time, always actually means switching back and forth between two things. Attention cannot be focused on two things at the same time. It's a technical impossibility. Right? What happens when we drive and we're just going to check that text while we're driving? God forbid, don't ever do this. If someone were to do this in an imaginary world, because it is just, you see someone doing it from the outside and you observe it, and it's just like, what's this person doing? They're in a vehicle that's moving 40 miles an hour and they're not looking at the road in front of them because they're checking their phone. And we've been so conditioned that our nervous systems feel like the phone rings, it's urgent, it's like a matter of life and death, I must check it. Actually, driving a car is a matter of life and death. A message on a phone is not, almost ever. And if it is, pull over. Anyways, tangent over. So, we feel like we can look at the road and the phone at the same time. You cannot do both. And we're just like, a person's just like, let me just quick read the text. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have to look back at the road. Why? Because you can't look at both at the same time. Now, you can chew gum and walk at the same time, because neither of those are things that you need to focus on to do. Neither of them require conscious, focused attention to do. But you can't do two things if they require attention, if they require focus. It's a technical impossibility. So multitasking really is going back and forth, which is extremely inefficient, because every time we switch, number one, there's a gap when our attention is moving from one to the other. Then there's time that it takes to refocus on something. Now, all of these things might add up to a quarter or a half a second each time for some things, maybe. Probably not, but even if they did, but if we're going back and forth between two things, 10 times a minute, because we think we're doing them both at the same time, we've wasted 10, 20, 30% of the minute just on the going back and forth. Anyways, so attention cannot be focused on two things at once. Right? And something that, is an expression people often say is, get out of your head. Or people say, I wish I could get out of my head. You can't get out of your head, really, in general. Because attention has to be focused on something. Right? It's like telling someone, don't think about, or you think about something, don't think about it. You can't not think about something. What you can do, which is actually very simple and extremely effective, is think about something else. You can't not think about something, because there's no such thing as not thinking. There's just thinking. So think about something else, and then you won't be thinking about this anymore. Same thing with attention. We can't just not pay attention to something. Don't just not be in our head. But if a person wants to not be in their head so much, what they can do is go somewhere else. Step into your body. And by stepping into your body, you are stepping by definition out of your head, because you can't be in both at the same time. So when we are studying Torah, by definition, our mind our consciousness, our attention is on the material that we are studying, which means it's not on other things. As far as, in a sense, we could almost say it's like well, it's not a distraction, it's the inverse of a distraction. A distraction is the thing that is stealing our attention from where we want it to be. This is reclaiming our attention from where we don't want it to be by focusing it on something we do want it to be focused on. As far as that's concerned, that doesn't necessarily have to be Torah per se. That could be anything that we can focus our attention on. The more it demands our attention and the more, once we start, it's going to pull us in, the more effective it's going to be. But when it comes to Torah specifically, the added factor here, the added layer is that we here are focusing our attention on something that by definition is ingesting and integrating the infinity of Hashem, of the Creator, into the cells of our bodies, into our minds, into our experience.